You're listening to Off the Record, presented by the Hotard Huddle, the podcast that gives you all the latest sports talk with an unadulterated, uncensored twist. Michael Hotard alongside Ryan Moore. You're listening to Off the Record. Got a hell of a show planned for you guys this week. Some of you may be wondering why Richard Fischer is not with me tonight, and that's because my cheap ass hasn't bought it more equipment for this broken ass piece of shit here. But that's okay. We're going to keep rolling with it. So anyway, we got some great stuff we're going to talk about tonight. Obviously, we have to touch on LSU firing head coach Les Miles. MLB playoffs are coming up, and I know my buddy Ryan here is stoked to talk about that. We got a huge Cubs fan in the house. What's not to love about the Chicago Cubs, right? We're also going to touch on some Bill Belichick, and as always, the ass hat of the week. An interesting debate coming up about Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry. And then, as per usual, we're going to talk NFL picks. And when we get into fantasy, we're going to mix it up this week and try something new, so be sure to check that out. And, of course, we're going to close with the athlete of the week. But starting off, as always, let's go right to the quote of the week, and it comes by none other than the great Les Miles. After he was fired following the loss to Auburn this week, he was doing an interview with Dan Patrick, and he said, and I quote, "I don't golf, I play no tennis, I enjoy shooting the gun, I don't necessarily like to point it at animals, I play cards, not very well, but what I have done for 12 to 14 hours a day for the last number of years has coached football, so I would have a difficult time not being involved in the game and not being a coach." So, in short, Les Miles is not done coaching football. But before we get into LSU and what their future holds, let's talk a little bit about Les Miles because, Ryan, I think it's time for him. His time is certainly passed with LSU. I absolutely agree with the firing of him, especially after a loss to an inferior Auburn team. There just comes a point in time where the game passes you up and you sort of overstay your welcome, and I think that's the case with Les Miles. However, the amount of hate and disrespect towards a coach who is the winningest in school history, and might I add, for some of you LSU fans out there who are now spoiled, your team hasn't won historically. Y'all haven't been shit historically. In the last 15 years, LSU's been a damn fine program. But prior to that, they were dog shit. And you're treating the guy who gave you some of the best years in LSU history like shit. I don't like the way people have sort of vilified Les Miles when he has been a great coach. I get it. You're frustrated. The teams are underperforming, and that's okay. I get the frustration. But let's not forget all the great years he gave LSU. And Ryan, I feel like, I know you and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago before the season started when we heard all the Les Miles talk. And you and I were both saying, absolutely not. You can't fire him just yet. So I want to ask you, has your opinion changed on this? Do you think this was the time?
I certainly do. I thought the time was at the end of last season. He definitely overstayed his welcome. Like you said, he is the winningest coach in all of LSU. But he would definitely find another head coaching job somewhere else and recruit just as well as he did for LSU. If you look at all the talent he's put in the NFL, you can't argue it. He does have some problems, as everyone does. Everyone's human. But it's going to be interesting finding a replacement for him.
Yeah. The next question that comes is, where does he land? There's already been talk, about possibly going to the Big Ten. I don't know where he's going to land. It's really hard to say just because he has been LSU football for so long. But whoever gets him as their next head coach, I think it's a win there. Unless you're dropping Jim Harbaugh or Urban Meyer or Nick Saban, you're getting an upgrade. I feel like, and sometimes you just need a shake up in scenery. And wherever he goes, I'm curious to see where he lands. Someone will pay him. Someone will hire him, and he will be a head coach by next season. I have absolutely no doubt about that.
Yep, he's got a whole off season to think of what he wants to do, see what schools offer him a job, and he will definitely have time to think about that.
Now, the next question is LSU. Where did they go from here? So you have some guys out there who are going to be interesting choices. Obviously, first and foremost, you have to mention him, Jimbo Fisher. They dropped the ball on him last season. But I think you could possibly rebound and maybe grab Jimbo from Florida State. The front runner, though, right now has been Houston coach Tom Herman. At first, I don't know how I felt about it, but Herman is doing some big things over there at Houston. And again, it's one of those schools. It's not an easy school to win at. It's Houston. What's special about Houston? Historically, you have nothing. So I think Herman is the front runner without a doubt. I mean, what about you, Ryan? How are you feeling about that?
Houston is definitely overperforming this year. You don't usually hear their name when you think of top 25 in college football. I don't know much about the coach, but LSU's got a whole season to figure out what they want to do.
One of the interesting things, though, about Tom Herman, and one of the things I really like about him is who he was the understudy to. He was the Ohio State offensive coordinator and quarterback coach under none other than the great Urban Meyer. So that right there is enough for you to at least buy what he's selling. Urban Meyer, I've always said this about Urban Meyer, and I feel this way to this day. I've always felt like he's a lot better of a coach than Nick Saban. And I know Nick Saban's the creme de la creme of college football, but there are two guys I would take over Nick Saban. Urban Meyer's one of them, and the other being Jim Harbaugh. Nick Saban had his national championship at LSU, left that program in good condition in the hands of Les Miles. He goes to Alabama, doesn't take him long. He's been winning there for years. But for Urban Meyer to jump ship after leaving Florida and winning 2 national titles there, and then going to Ohio State, a Big Ten program, which prior to him going there, I mean, Ohio State was lucky when they racked in a 4-star athlete, and it took him 2-3 seasons to win the first national championship at Ohio State. The guy's incredible. And because of guys like Urban Meyer and Jim Harbaugh, the Big Ten's on the come up. And as soon as Michigan inked Harbaugh over there, you now have 2 premier coaches there. And I think it's only a matter of time. And I think within the next 5 years, we could very well be talking about the Big Ten in a lot of ways like we talk about the SEC now.
Man, the SEC's weak this year. Nobody's playing except Alabama, and they look shaky. So Big Ten is definitely on the come up. Michigan, you got Ohio State. I got to throw a shout out to Nebraska. Can't wait to watch them next season. So it's going to be interesting.
With Nebraska, the reason that my boy Ryan here is giving a shout out to them is our good friend's little brother. Good old Tanner Lee is just transferred there, former Tulane quarterback. He transferred to Nebraska, and we're hoping to see big things out of him. So that's the reason for the fanboys for Nebraska in the next year. So go Cornhuskers. And somewhere in the Midwest, my good friend Trevor Rice is screaming hallelujah to that huge Nebraska fan, that guy. But as far as the next head coach, we kind of went off on a tangent there, but Tom Herman from Houston has been one of the names mentioned. Jimbo Fisher.
Art
Briles. I mean, the list goes on, but realistically, I feel like it's Fisher or Herman or it's miss. Unless, of course, you could get John Gruden to come out of retirement, which will never happen. But
you never know what happened with Coach Oregon with LSU right now.
Yeah, Ogeron, Ogeron was named interim head coach. Good old down the bayou boy known as Bebe. So I know a lot of my friends from down the bayou and people I went to Nichols with are stoked about that. But we'll go ahead and wrap up the first segment here, and we're going to talk some Major League Baseball. So as those of you who may know, the Major League Baseball playoffs are right around the corner, and as I said earlier, my buddy Ryan here is a huge Chicago Cubs fan, so naturally it's kind of rubbed off on me, and since they've gotten good, I've continued my front-running ways that I know my friends love, and I'm jumping on that Cubs bandwagon, man. It's a fun bandwagon to be a part of. Right now they're the most winningest team this season for Major League Baseball. A lot of people like them to possibly win the World Series. They're definitely a favorite right now. But we're going to talk a little bit about the playoff picture here. And I'll tell you what, Ryan, I know you follow baseball a little more religiously than I do. But looking at the standings and everything like that, dude, the NL is just loaded. And the Cubs are going to have a tough road ahead of them because in the NL, you have the Washington Nationals who clinched a playoff spot already. You have the Dodgers. And then potentially the New York Mets. Mets more than likely are going to get in, assuming they can win their first wild card game, which will be played against either the St. Louis Cardinals or San Francisco Giants. Now, you wouldn't normally hear me say this in most seasons, but I feel like I would almost want the Cardinals to get in if I were the Cubs, because you don't have to deal with the pitching that the New York Mets have or the pitching that the San Francisco Giants hold. And these other NL teams, I mean, even the Nationals, they're just loaded with pitching. However, can they match the Cubs' offense? Because, I mean, let's face it, you better look to score at least 6-7 runs if you want to beat them in a series.
Actually, to be honest, I would disagree. The Cardinals are the last team that I want to see in the wild card. We knocked them out of the wild card last season, so they're going to come to Chicago looking for blood. I do not want. They are the most familiar with us. They are in our division, so they see us the most. I think the Cubs are 8-8 with the Cardinals this year, so they play us well. The Mets, their pitching staff is not been healthy. I really wouldn't mind seeing the Mets. Great thing about the wild card game is it's going to be Giants, Cardinals, or the Mets. One of those three. Whoever makes it to the wild card game has to throw their ace. You got to get into the playoffs. So when they come see the Cubs first round, the ace is on rest for the next 3-4 days. So I believe the Mets, all they have is Noah Syndergaard left.
That guy's beautiful, let me just say. Thor,
yes. He is in, so if he throws the wild card game, we don't have to worry about seeing him game one, and he's got to come to Chicago and face what is arguably the best starting rotation in baseball.
Yeah. I talked about it last week with the staff they have. I mean, guys like Jake Arrieta, John Lester, Jason Hamels. Top to bottom, man, they're loaded. And then looking at their lineup, it's stupid. It's video game-like. And, then assuming the Cubs do get past that first series, then you're looking at a series possibly with the Nationals or the Los Angeles Dodgers. So as a Cubs fan, what's out of those two teams, assuming the Cubs make it, knock on wood, out of those two, who would you rather face?
Probably the Washington Nationals. I just want to stay away from Kershaw. The Nationals just lost their catcher, Wilson Ramos. He tore his ACL the other night. So he's done for the playoffs. So like the Mets, the Nationals aren't as healthy. The Cubs have clinched a while back, so we've been giving our guys rest. Joe is a phenomenal manager. He really is going to have these guys prepared for the playoffs. And out of the AL, the one team I don't want to see right now is the Boston Red Sox. Cubs won number 101 tonight, and Boston has 92 wins. So you're talking a 9-game difference, and the Cubs have had a phenomenal year, so the Boston Red Sox are right behind them.
With the NL now, one of the things I'm interested to see, I'll talk about some Boston Red Sox as I sit here looking at a picture of me and Fenway at my bachelor party as we sit here and talk about this. But talk about Boston in a second. Let's focus real quick on the Nationals. First of all, from a rating standpoint, from a TV standpoint, Cubs Nationals in the NLCS would be amazing. You're talking about one of the most loved franchises in all of sports, that is the Chicago Cubs, versus the golden boy of baseball right now with Bryce Harper. Love him or hate him, people are talking about him. He's a little bit of a hothead, but he's been hyped up since he's 17 years old or 16 years old, and he's lived up to the hype. I mean, he's everything the Nationals wanted him to be. And for the Nationals and Cubs to play in an NLCS, the baseball fan in me is just dying to see that happen.
Hey, when you're 23 years old and you win the MVP, that is Bryce Harper, you are allowed to do whatever you want. He is a rising star. The baseball needs more players like him. He's what brings fire back into baseball. Yeah, and I can't wait. I hope we do get to see him. That means we move on to the second round.
Yeah, Bryce Harper, it's just, like I said, love him or hate him, there's an appeal to him. He's essentially baseball's LeBron. He's must-see TV for baseball. I wrote a column right before baseball season started, and it was about Bryce Harper and quoting good old Donald Trump here, making baseball great again. Because he is. He's controversial. He's not your stereotypical baseball player. He doesn't believe in the purism that's behind baseball. He's going to do the bat flips. He's going to celebrate. He's going to anoint himself. And I love that. I absolutely love that. Baseball absolutely needs it because, like it or not, and there's not a whole lot that really can be done to change it, baseball by nature is just, it can be very boring. It can be very tedious. Our attention spans are no longer what they once were. Social media, smartphones, all this has, even NFL games, like how many of you sit out there in a high action sport while you're watching NFL games and you're checking your smartphone for your fantasy scores or for other stuff while great games are going on? It's just the reality of it. And when you're watching a sport like baseball that is as slow of a pace, that's only going to magnify. And guys like Bryce Harper are going to sort of close that gap. Maybe not close it all together, but they're just going to make it better. So I'm a huge fan of that. And like I said, Cubs versus Nationals, all day. I'll take it.
Yep. Can't agree more.
Now, over in the AL, so I know my buddy Ryan here just said he doesn't want to see the Cubs play against the Boston Red Sox, who another just great baseball team, another lineup that I absolutely love. And for the record, I did grow up kind of a Yankees fan because I was a huge Jeter fanboy, and still am. But one of the things I love about baseball is all the historic franchises you have. So going to Fenway, like I said, as I sit here looking at this beautiful picture of one of the greatest parks in America, going to see that live and in the flesh and doing the whole tour thing, it's awesome. So even as someone who grew up a bit of a Yankees fan, it's hard not to like a team like Boston just from the sheer historic standpoint of it, because ultimately for me, sports fan trumps team fan every day. But from Boston, I was talking about this with somebody. If we do see Boston and Cubs, ultimately I'd want the Cubs to win. However, to see Dave Ortiz go out with a World Series, I think would be amazing. You're talking about one of the legends of the game and truly one of the best people as far as baseball has to offer. A lot of people feel very similar in a sense to how they felt about Jeter. Like, there's a lot of respect there. There's a lot of guys who looked up to Ortiz. A lot of young guys in that league now. But not only Ortiz, but you look at this roster, and it's another just deep roster. Dustin Pedroia, who's been one of baseball's best second basemen for the last, 6-7 years. And then you have a guy who by far is one of my favorite players in Major League Baseball. And I don't know if it's because he's as good as he is or it's because of his freaking name, but Mookie Betts, good God, that kid can flat out play. And Boston's another team that you're going to have to look out for in the next couple of years.
Man, you said Boston, Chicago in a World Series, and it gave me the chills. I couldn't imagine two of the oldest stadiums hosting a World Series for 7 games. I guess, like you said, David Ortiz goes out on a win. If it does happen, I guess that's the only way I would pick for it, the Cubs to lose, if David Ortiz went off. But I just want to see my Cubs in the World Series. It's got to happen. My mom actually has a hotel lined up for the week of the World Series just in case they make it. Not saying I'll go to a game, but I have potentially a chance to be in Chicago for games 3, 4, and 5. So we will see what happens.
I'm sure there's plenty of bars you can find in Chicago to go watch the good old Cubbies. But over in the AL, as of now, you have Boston, who's clinched. Cleveland Indians, Cleveland clinched. And then the Texas Rangers. So, honestly, out of the AL teams, the only two I'm really banking on making the World Series right now is Texas and Boston. I don't know how you feel about it, but Texas is another team. They went all in for the trade deadline. They picked up Jonathan Lucroy, who was one of the big names who was traded before that deadline. You also have Adrian Beltre over there, Elvis Andrus. They traded for Carlos Beltran from the Yankees. They went all in so they could try to win the World Series this year. And, I think it looks pretty good for them. You got guys like Cole Hamels on the mound.
Yu Darvish. The Rangers do look solid this year. The best story about the Rangers this year is their second baseman, Ruben Odor. That man has been on fire ever since he had one of the best punches I've ever seen landed in the MLB on Jose Bautista. The man's been on fire. I think he's a second baseman, and he hit for 30 home runs this year. That's not many second. You got Robinson Cano that I can think of off the top of my head that could peak 30 home runs in a season as a second baseman. So they will definitely be in contention.
Yeah. Speaking of second baseman, as Ryan said, Odor, 31 home runs this year. And for a second baseman, that's unheard of. You don't hear about many power-hitting second basemen. Back in the day, you had Dan Uggla.
Craig Biggio.
Craig Biggio. He wasn't a true second baseman. He did play the outfield. He was kind of a utility guy. But you don't see a lot of home runs from second baseman. And Odor, as you said, has been on fire. And, kind of wish I would have seen him get smoked. You just can't punch Joey Bats like that. I love me some.
You definitely can, because he did it.
I love me some Joey Bats. But overall, so before the playoffs start, barring any injury, my official pick for the World Series, we're getting Boston versus the Cubs. Ryan, who you going with?
It doesn't matter who comes out of the AL for me, as long as my Cubs are in the World Series. I'm ready for whoever comes. So it's going to be a fun month of October. I am going to be in Guatemala for the NLCS, so I will be looking for Wi-Fi wherever I can find it so I can stream them games. But it's going to be a fun postseason. It starts next Tuesday with the wild card games. Next Thursday, Cubs play the winner of the wild card game, and I will be watching.
Now, I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about this. So we were just talking about it before. Now, for those of you who may not know my good friend Ryan here, he turns into an absolute shit show when it comes to Cubs baseball in the playoffs. So for every run scored, I believe, my man Ryan here does a shot.
Shot of Captain Morgan's.
Captain Morgan. A shot of Captain Morgan for every run scored. Ryan, you're going to be dead by the 6th inning with the way the Cubs offense is playing.
Hey, man, I went to Chicago in June this year. I got to watch Arrieta throw on a Friday afternoon and Lester throw on a Saturday night. I sat in the bleachers 3 rows back, and I don't remember anything past the 6th inning. Grandpa Ross, the old man, hit a home run in the 6th. I actually caught it on Snapchat, and I don't remember anything else after that. So it is nothing new for me to drink during the Cubs game.
Hey, how deep does your fan run? But anyway, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. So you heard it here with some baseball predictions for the World Series. I got Cubs and Red Sox. And as Ryan said, he doesn't give a shit who's coming out the AL as long as the Cubs are making it for the NL. Let's go ahead and switch over to another aspect of winning in sports. I think the guy defines the term winning and just shits on it and makes another word. Don't know what it is, but the guy does more than win. So let's talk a little bit about Bill Belichick here. So Bill Belichick, for those of you who don't know who he is, I advise you to just tune off of this show, because if you don't know who Bill Belichick is, I have no use for you. You're beyond saving at this point. Bill Belichick, head coach of the New England Patriots, a.k.a. the god of football. Like, is there anyone, and I mean anyone, that can even be remotely considered as good of a coach as Bill Belichick, besides, of course, Gordon Bombay? We all know I have a fascination for Gordon Bombay. Get over it. If you don't like it, don't really care. But Bill Belichick, so let me set this straight. He doesn't have his quarterback, that is Tom Brady, also a god of football. He doesn't have the backup quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, who's a young up-and-coming star. Yeah, that's right. He's going to be a star. So he resorts to Jacoby Brissett. He wasn't bad at Florida. He was okay. But you don't think about Jacoby Brissett and think, oh, yeah, this guy's going to win his first NFL start. Yeah, he does. And Bill Belichick wins that game against the Houston Texans. Again, a good football team. We're not talking about a shit team here. We're talking about the 2-0 Houston Texans heading into that game. And they destroy him 27-0. It blows my mind. Like, I would just love to talk to Bill Belichick for 5 minutes just to get inside of his head and see how the fuck he views this game, this world, this everything, because the guy just doesn't lose. I have a couple of rules as far as betting, which I'm not a betting man. And, you know, Ryan will tell you that because
I didn't make you bow tonight. Oh, man.
So, Bill Belichick, though, if there are a select few guys I won't bet against, it's Bill Belichick, Greg Popovich, Nick Saban right now. Nick Saban's got it going on at Alabama. I know I shit on him a little bit earlier, saying that I like Meyer and Harbaugh more, which I do. Give it a couple of years. They'll be on that list. But right now, you don't bet against Nick Saban. You don't bet against Greg Popovich for the San Antonio Spurs. And you sure as hell don't bet against Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. Every single year that playoffs come around, and I'm like, Patriots are playing the Steelers this week. Yeah, well, if I'm going to pick, I'm just going to go ahead and pick the Patriots because, well, if I lose, I so be it. I can't bet against Belichick. But he's winning right now. The Patriots are still undefeated, and that's without their star quarterback, Tom Brady. And God, I just don't know. It blows my mind. I really can't formulate words to describe Bill Belichick and what the hell he's doing.
The three of those coaches that you just mentioned, they are so good at what they do is because they're never satisfied. Saban could be up 45-0 on a no-name school and his lineman commits holding. He's going to be chewing his ass out. That's a mental lapse that doesn't need to happen when you're in crunch time. All three of those players, when they give their speeches, it's short to the point. They know he knows what they did wrong, and he's going to make sure that player knows you messed up. Time to fix it. You got a lot of game left to fix it. You look at them on the sideline; they're never smiling. They're never joking around. They're always serious. They should probably play poker because they have a solid poker face when they're coaching.
Bill Belichick, I think it's interesting, though, because unlike Nick Saban, who gets butthurt by things like the no-huddle offense, Bill Belichick, he changes the game. It really does blow my mind. So before the tight end became a glamour position that it kind of is now, what was Bill Belichick doing? He was running 2 tight end sets with Hernandez and Gronk, and he's now going to be doing that with Gronk and Martellus Bennett, probably.
I hope so. I got Gronk on 2 fantasy teams, and he's killing me right now.
So, he's just revolutionary. Back in 2007, where the Patriots got Randy Moss. This was before we saw quarterbacks throwing 45 times a game, and it became the normal thing in the NFL. What did Bill Belichick do? He just threw the frickin' mess out the ball, and Brady broke all the records. And the thing that I love about him is you never know what you're going to get. You can't prepare for the New England Patriots. You can't. I think it was maybe 3 years ago. They played the Ravens in the playoffs, and I can't remember who they faced the next week. I really can't remember. But bottom line was, I do remember this. I remember sitting there watching the first game the Patriots played, and here they are throwing the ball 48 times. Then the next week, they threw the ball maybe 20 times. You don't know what you're going to get out of Bill Belichick. What he does is he finds the weakness, and he's just going to exploit it. The other thing I like about Belichick is no matter who the player is, he will find a way for that guy to be successful. People can say all they want about Wes Welker. Wes Welker wasn't shit before he got to New England. And Bill Belichick and Tom Brady made him into a bona fide superstar at the receiver position. And now, not to play the race card here, but you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to. Do you know who the New England Patriots receivers are right now? Let's be honest. Let's take a look at their 3 receivers, their 3 best receivers, and receivers, not tight ends, so I'm not going to include Martellus Bennett. You have Julian Edelman. For the record, he's white. He's a white guy. He's also 5'10". Then you have Chris Hogan, another white guy. He's 6'1". And now let's go to good old Danny Amendola.
Glass house.
Yeah, Ryan's absolutely right there. He is a glass house. But he's 5'11". He's also white. This guy is playing with 3 white receivers. Now, there's no denying. You can't deny that. It's science. And Bill Belichick is playing with 3
white tight end.
It absolutely blows my mind. This is going back to what I was saying. He takes these guys, he utilizes their skill set. He doesn't try to adopt that they can't handle, much like you see with Sean Payton, hashtag Kobe Fleener. And he's going to use that to exploit other teams. And when he attacks you, he's going to... I think everyone would have said I was crazy if I thought Garrett Blount would be leading the league right now in rushing. He's had a couple of good years, couple of shining spots, but overall he's been pretty mediocre, and he's leading the league in rushing. Coach football has ever seen, period.
How do you expect the Texans to come out on Thursday Night Football on a short run option to be being called as plays in New England? What's his name? Brissett?
Yeah.
Comes out, hasn't played a snap in the NFL, and busts what up. It's impossible to game plan for Belichick, and you got to just hope you get lucky that
because the guy for the last 4 years, and I could go back further and probably pull this up, but 5 most consistent teams in the NFL, Patriots are obviously the most. They don't get hurt. They're playing without Gronk. They're playing without Brady. It doesn't matter. Bill Belichick still 12 games, make the playoffs, make a deep run. And it really does. It just blows my freaking mind at how good this guy is. And like Ryan just said, he was running the read option with Brissett. And I'm totally convinced that Bill Belichick, for every quarterback, has a totally different playbook. He's just like, we'll throw this one away this week. We don't have Brady. All right. Jacoby Brissett. We're going to run a lot of zone read this week. Cool. Deal. It's unbelievable. It really is. I mean, let's be honest, though. When we're talking about greatest coaches of all time, at least in my lifetime, I can't go back to the Tom Walshes and
Phil Jackson.
Right, like even Phil Jackson. I mean, I caught the tail half of the Kobe run, but I didn't see the Jordan run. I didn't see the early Kobe Shaq run. But when we're talking about best coaches, I mean, let's take from 2004 on. It's second to none. There's no one that's better. And even a guy like Popovich, even your Nick Sabans, there isn't a single coach I would take over Bill Belichick in any sport, in any capacity. Except, of course, Gordon Bombay. Just throwing that out there again. Patriots, since Belichick's been at the helm, he got there in 2001 and 2001, I believe. And they've made 8 or 9 AFC championship games. They've missed the playoffs, I think, 1 year, and in that 1 year or 2 years, excuse me, because during the Patriots' 3 Super Bowl run out of the 4 years, they missed 1-1, I believe, and then they missed again when Matt Castle was quarterback, but they still managed to win 11 games that year. So it was just a freak year where they shouldn't have missed the playoffs. So to be able to win that much, be that consistent, and be that great at what you do, I don't care who you are. So to the 65, 70-year-old man who's railing on about old coach from back in the 70s, no, there's no one better. And I'm not convinced that you can even make the argument anymore. Bill Belichick's unfrickin' real. Man,
you said it perfectly. I don't need to address the subject. You nailed it. Like I said, that man's never satisfied. We've seen a dynasty over the past 10 years with them. I believe wasn't the first one in 2003 in the Superdome. Was that what year was that?
The first one I believe came in 02, and then they
02.
It was either 01 or 02. They lost the next year, and then wound up winning 2 more.
That.
Oh, and then let's talk about that too. The 2 Super Bowls they actually did play in and lose. We have a stupid catch by Mario Manningham that helped the Giants win, and then we had a stupid catch by David Tyree that helped them win. So it's not like they went in there and got smoked. They lost because of 2 really ballsy, gutsy, good plays by freaking mediocre receivers who aren't even in the league anymore. And then, of course, they went ahead and beat the Seahawks just a few years ago.
They got their revenge. Seahawks decide not to throw it. Everybody knows it. Everybody saw it. They don't give it to Marshawn Lynch. They throw it, and Butler makes the play of his life and won me about $150 on a Super Bowl square because I had Patriots 8, Seattle 4. So I was even more pumped that it happened because it won me a bunch of money. So they got their revenge, and I expect to see them there this year. Brady's going to come back in 2 weeks, and he is going to be a man on a mission. He's 5 weeks behind, and I guarantee you he still ends up being top 5 in the league quarterback-wise. So we will see.
I actually have Brady. I did my predictions for the year on the top 10 quarterbacks. And Brady, I believe I had him throwing 31 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. I think he's going to come back with a vengeance. I think thing is with Blunt, maybe they're running the ball well right now, but as soon as Brady returns, I could totally see Belichick flipping the script and just being like, hey, Brady, go throw 50 times, get your stats, and pat him.
It's only going to help. I mean, LeGarrette Blount's still going to get his numbers. They're going to be throwing, and the defense has to prepare for Tom Brady now, a pocket passer. Like, how do you prepare for LeGarrette Blount, who can truck anybody on the field right now, and then you got Tom Brady and Gronk coming back at the same time? I mean, Gronk comes back week 3, And Bill Belichick doesn't even call plays for him. He goes out there, blocks on 14 plays, gets his confidence back that he's healthy. I mean, you shut out a Texans team, like you said, that was 2-0, and you didn't even call a single route for Gronkowski.
And let's add something to that. Gronkowski is arguably the best offensive player in football, not at the quarterback position. So it really is unbelievable. But enough of the Bill Belichick fanboyism here. We're going to close that out. But coming up in a sec, we're going to talk about someone who is a complete dumbass. So that dumbass that I'm referring to is none other than defensive end, former Dallas Cowboy, former Carolina Panther, Greg Hardy. So in case you didn't hear the news, Greg Hardy was arrested for cocaine and someone slipped it in his wallet. Yeah, okay, because your mugshot, you look high as fuck, let's be honest. So Greg Hardy, Jesus Christ, man. This guy is just as bad as Joseph Randle, former Dallas Cowboy running back who was arrested, 37 times in a matter of 4 hours? Something like that. But, Greg Hardy, like I said, was just arrested for possession of cocaine. And you know what's crazy to me is he still gets chance after chance. And I hate to bring up the Ray Rice thing because Ray Rice has seen better days. But I feel like there's a couple of guys on rosters who aren't as good as Ray Rice is at the running back position. Greg Hardy beats the shit out of a girl, grabs her by the neck, and yeah, we're going to give this guy a chance, but we can't give Ray Rice a chance, who, has actively speaking out against domestic violence, especially against women. Meanwhile, Greg Hardy's just saying, oh, yeah, they didn't prove it. No, you just had the fucking money to buy it out, I'm sure, you dickwad. But yeah, he was just arrested again. So for those of you who may have defended Greg Hardy the first time, yeah, he's not exactly a good guy. Guy's a piece of shit. And that's why we've dubbed him our ass hat of the week. Like, honestly, I look at his face, I just want to frickin' rip his nose off and maybe hit it with a baseball bat. Let's be honest. Guy deserves to get his ass beat.
Please go back to the excuse on why he had cocaine in his wallet. When the cops found it, he said he was busy buying everyone drinks in a bar and someone slipped it in his wallet. I mean, that's a story that you come up with when you know you're caught and you have no other option.
Look, I'm going to give you one better. I thought my excuse at like 8 years old, I bit a kid at summer camp one time. And I'm really embarrassed about this excuse. And this is how Greg Hardy should feel about his poor, pathetic excuse. So I was climbing up the monkey bars, right? And this kid was being a jerk and wouldn't move. Because I don't do anything wrong. I'm the golden child. That's why I was the youngest. My parents decided to stop having kids after me because they knew they got it right. That's what happened. So, now I'm climbing up the monkey bars, right? And this little shit wouldn't move, so I bit him in his leg. And he got off, and I got my spot on the monkey bar. He went and told, like a little punk. Little rat. And when we go into the camp director's office or whatever, my excuse was, I accidentally just bumped him with my tooth. That was what my 8-year-old head came up with. Like, couldn't come up.
You knew you messed up, and you had no other better excuse, and that was the first thing that came to your mind. That's exactly how Greg Hardy, he was just like, somebody slipped it to me? I mean, what?
Exactly.
You fucked up, you got caught, and now you're never going to play in the NFL for the rest of your life.
Yeah, guy's an idiot. I feel like my excuse was more believable. Like, so let's talk about that for a minute. For anyone who's, of age, wink, wink, who has been to a bar, when you go buy a drink, you open your wallet, you can see what the hell you're doing with your wallet. I've never, just held my wallet out, holding it wide open and turned my head the other way for people, to just steal the $4 I got for my birthday, Someone slipped it in your wallet. Like, Someone could slip it in your pocket. Yeah, that's probably a good excuse. But your wallet, what the fuck, man? You're stupid. You're just dumb. And again, I'll say it again. My excuse of my tooth bumping into that kid's still a hell of a lot better at 8 years old than this guy who, 20 something. The only good thing that came out of Greg Hardy was the crack in Hogwarts on the NFL ticker thing where they announce where they're from, their name, and all that good stuff. But yeah, dude's an idiot. As I said, I'm sitting here looking at his mugshot, and I just want to punch him in the face. Like, he just has the face you want to punch, you know? So if you ever get the chance to punch Greg Hardy, do it. Tweet me, let me know. Maybe send me a picture or a video of it, and I will forward you $12 because that's about what I'm worth. So, but let's go ahead and move away from our asshat. I don't think we have to take much more time than other than Greg Hardy, you're a freaking dumbass. So let's go ahead and move away here before I get way too fired up. I might punch Ryan if I keep talking about this. I want to go ahead and open up the debate here. Two former LSU standouts, Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry, both good young receivers, but who are you taking long term? So Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry are both well on their way to fantastic careers, both former LSU products. So far this year, Jarvis Landry, he's been killing it for the first 3 weeks of the NFL season. Odell Beckham been a little quiet. He doesn't even have a touchdown yet. He has, I believe, 208 receiving yards. I'm going to double check on that really quick. Or, excuse me, 280. I'm looking at the numbers here. So Jarvis Landry, 24 catches on 34 targets. He's got 314 yards and a touchdown. Beckham, 19 of 30 for 280 and no touchdowns. Jarvis Landry also has 6 plays of 20-plus yards to Odell Beckham's 3. So he's definitely outplaying him early on. I don't know how much longer it keeps up. Both of those guys are going to be top 5, top 7 receivers in the coming years. But I'm opening up the debate here for who would you take long term, and I'm actually going to take a very unpopular opinion here. I feel like I'm going to go with Jarvis Landry for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think he's playing with a lesser talent at quarterback with Ryan Tannehill, and the number of catches he's had over the last couple of years. He's got the most by year 2 last year. He had over 100 catches. He had 84 his rookie year. Now, he's not going to get the big play as much as Odell Beckham does. I don't think he stretches the field nearly as much. But when you're talking about a guy who's just going to go across the middle and catch the damn ball, that's your guy. But the big reason I say I would take Landry over Odell Ball. One of my big issues and knocks on Beckham, I feel like he's mentally weak. You see him do the stupid shit like the crackback block against the Saints a couple of weeks ago. He just does dumb shit that gets you penalized, that could get you suspended. Obviously, the whole Josh Norman fiasco last year. I just feel like he's one of those guys you could get inside his head very easily. And honestly, if I'm a cornerback, I'm going to mess with that guy for 60 minutes. I'm going to piss him off to no end because it's evident if you throw him off his rocker and piss him off, he's not the same player. He's going to make stupid mistakes. And again, I'm not taking away from the talent that Odell Beckham has because as far as talent's concerned, I mean, there isn't a guy who's probably adding more wins to a team than Odell Beckham is for the New York Giants as far as the receiver position. I mean, as far as just adding wins to a team, there's Antonio Brown, there's Odell Beckham. I feel of the mental state of mind. I think he's too much of a firecracker and too much of a wild card. Not a guy I would want to necessarily invest a huge contract.
Yeah, I also will go with Jarvis Landry. for two different for the Dolphins. So he brings more than just being a route runner. Back play. The one I will never forget, I was actually watching it, was last year again, and he one-handed that ball against the Cowboys. I nearly punched my girlfriend one hand, and I just lost it. I also think I would take Jarvis Landry, receiver. I think he will continue go for a crazy catch over the middle one day and get decleated from a health standpoint and longevity of a career.
Yeah, thought of, but yeah, I mean, as far as longevity, I could see Jarvis Landry playing 15-year career possibly. Odell Beckham, because of, they're not saying he shouldn't do that, because that's what makes him so special. That's what makes him a great player. To 10 years, similar to what happened with Calvin Johnson. But those guys are fantastic football players. They're both going to be top class of receivers, and there's a bunch of them when you look at some of the young guys you got. One of the guys I'm a huge fan of is actually Will Fuller in Houston. So there's just a ton of guys right now.
I'm going to add this because I'm going to tie it into earlier in the show. LSU had Jarvis Landry, or were in the league. Mettenberger, not so much. But the other three, Jeremy Hill, Odell Beckham, and Jarvis Landry, with them on the field. So I just wanted to tie that into earlier.
But yeah, I mean, and he's got potential to go for, like, one of the things I think ODB is going to do in his career is hitting 1,300. I think that's his absolute ceiling. I don't know that I'd want to take him over that, and I think a really level-headed athlete. It's one of those things that just scares me away. I think he's got that the very diva-esque mentality. And I think sometimes it can hurt you, as we've seen with guys like Terrell Owens, Randy Moss even, until he revitalized his career. But in the words of Randy Moss, I don't need to revitalize nothing. So it's interesting. But some of the other young receivers right now in the NFL, Mike Evans, he's...
Terrell Pryor.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Ryan just brought up Terrell Pryor. Let's talk a little bit about that guy. Where the fuck did he come from? Jesus Christ. He's doing a little bit of everything for the Cleveland Browns right now, you know? Might get in a little quarterback, run the ball a little bit, maybe catch a couple of passes. But so far this year, he's got 14 catches for 244 yards. Hold up. His only touchdown came on a running play. And then he's thrown 5 passes this year and completed 3 of them. What the hell's going on here? The
man is an athlete. That's all you can say. For someone, he was drafted by Oakland Raiders as a quarterback, and now he is lining up as a wide receiver in Cleveland. Josh Gordon is on the way, and he's going to be getting... could we see our first Dixie back?
It's get a little healthier, because you're talking about a receiving trio that could feature Josh Gordon. Yeah.
Thanks, fantasy.
But Corey Coleman will, once he little 3-headed duo you got there, 3 guys who can go up, get it, make some plays for you. It's going to be interesting, but... Let's go ahead and shift the focus here. I think we've talked enough receivers for one day.
Can I bring up something?
Yeah, absolutely, Ryan. You can bring up anything.
Can I do a play of the week?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I don't know if you heard this. It's by a guy named Ty Montgomery. He plays for the Packers. They were playing this past week, and there was a play against Detroit. They kick the ball off, and I don't know, most people might not know, if you kick the ball off out of bounds, the opposing team gets the ball on the 40-yard line. So they must have noticed, with the new kickoff rules, that they are pooch kicking it and trying to get you pinned further back. Well, Mr. Montgomery here gets a ball kicked on the sideline and sticks his feet out of bounds, lays down on the football field, and touches the ball. And by rule... a player touching a ball out of bounds is deemed out of bounds, and it was a 37-yard penalty. The Packers should have been on the 3-yard line, and instead they get the ball on the 40. 4 plays later, Aaron Rodgers touchdown. Every year somebody comes up with something, and this was a loophole that the Packers found, and I think it's going to be played more often because, like I said, the kickoff rules have changed this year, and it's definitely going to happen more than once this season.
I'll tell you what, though, Ty Montgomery, I want to add something to this. We're not talking about just some guy who's out there playing football and, that's all he knows. No, this kid went to Stanford, so he's obviously. And I saw that play. Someone posted it on Facebook, and I was just like, no shit. I didn't know that was a thing, but apparently he did. He brought that up because it was one of the funniest things I've seen. He's just like, all right, feet out of bounds. They get the ball on the 40. It was awesome. By far one of the funniest things. Me personally, I would have never thought to do that. Like, I didn't even know that was a rule. I figured you step out of bounds, that's where you get the ball. But no, Ty Montgomery, Stanford graduate. He obviously knew what the hell he was doing. He knew exactly what he was doing, and I just think that's funny because whenever they started doing all these pooch kicks, I wonder if he thought to himself, well, if that happens, well, joke's on them, I guess.
Yeah, you got Aaron Rodgers as quarterback, so even from the 3-yard line, I still like your chances with Aaron Rodgers. But like I said, every season you see a coach that exploits a rule. Bill Belichick did it. What was the controversial thing that he did against the Ravens in the playoffs? He found a loophole in the system. And you know what? If I love this saying, I used it during college. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. And the Packers, I don't know who came up with it. Like, it had to have been planned because this isn't something that you just think of on the whim at the last second. They read this rule and go, well, you know what? We're going to take advantage of this. If this happens, this is part of preparing for a football game. And applaud to the special team coach of the Green Bay Packers. I couldn't even tell you his name is. Had to have planned this, and it worked to a beaut.
Yeah, I like what you said, Ryan. If you're not cheating, you're not trying. I've always said this too in sports. If you can get the refs in your pocket or do something to get yourself a couple of extra calls, do it, man. The whole flopping thing in the NBA, people hate that. Dude, if I'm in the NBA and I can get away with it as much as James Harden does.
LeBron James.
Hey, I can't say that I wouldn't do it. I absolutely would do it. Get the calls in your pocket. And Ty Montgomery did that. So he's doing his job out there, and he put his team in good field position. And they went on to score. So good for him. Now, let's go ahead and shift over to some of the NFL picks this week. We're going to do our 5 picks. Richard will not be here, obviously, so I went ahead and took the liberty of getting his pick so I can keep tabs on how much I'm going to kick his ass this season. Again, I'm still going to fire shots while he's not here because...
Can't even defend himself.
No, he's not. Hey, you know what? I can't help it. My equipment broke. I'm not going to change who I am because my equipment broke.
Just tell him to drive in from Mississippi.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure Richard would have...
It's not that long of a drive. It's only a Tuesday night. I mean, what, we got like work in the morning or something?
You would think. So we'll go ahead and move on to our NFL picks for week 4. So let's go ahead and start with our Thursday night football game this week. We got a real shit show brewing for Thursday. I'm so excited about it. We have the Miami Dolphins against the Cincinnati Bengals. Yeah, that ought to be such a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful game. Yeah, I'm going with the Bengals in this one. Miami sucks. Bengals are a decent team. They get Vontaze Burfict back this week. That's huge. Yeah, Cincinnati creams them. Ryan, who you got?
I guess I will go the same. Cincinnati is a complete team surrounding them. I think they made the bonehead trade of the year, but Glasshouse than Danny Amendola. I just don't see them being able to keep up with the firepower that the Bengals have.
All right, and yeah, I'll give you Richard's picks. Texted him right before this happened, so yeah, it's unanimous. Everyone's going with the good old Cincinnati Bengals. So the next divisional matchup in the AFC South, the Indianapolis Colts against the Jacksonville. Go ahead and talk about the AFC South and what's happening over there right now.
This is a London game, if I'm not mistaken.
It is the London game.
You wake up Sunday morning, 9:30 in the morning with football on. It's going to be the best Sunday ever.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll wake up at, second quarter, maybe. So, yeah, we got the London game this week. So, actually, holy shit, 8. Ryan won't be up for that game. So, Indianapolis taking on Jacksonville. Now, the AFC South, the way it stands, Texans are sitting at 2-1.
Just lost J.J. Watt, going on the injury reserve.
Yeah.
So, they're in trouble.
Yep. But 1-2, which is why most people will pick the Jaguars. However, I'm just not liking what I'm seeing out the Jaguars. I think the Colts offensively are doing okay. They're putting up some points. Andrew Luck did last year. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Colts in this one over the Jaguars and good old luck.
So there's no home field advantage here, and the Colts coming off of a loss, but T.Y. Hilton scored a 66-yard touchdown with 2 minutes left. Just like the Cincinnati game, I just don't see Jacksonville keeping up with the firepower. That 30 years old. Defense looks questionable at best, but that fire
went ahead and took Jacksonville, so the gap's gonna get even further for me this week as I'm 8-6. Richard's 5-9. Suck it, Richard. Baltimore's 3-0. Meanwhile, Oakland is sitting at 2-1. However, Baltimore's wins, a lot of people are saying this team's not opponents. They've beaten the Bills, the Browns, and the Jags. There's concern they got a pretty good roster, which ultimately is why they're 3-0 right now, regardless of the competition. Good streak get derailed. I'm gonna take Oakland in this one. I think Derek Carr has some fun in Baltimore this week, so I'm going with the Raiders here.
I'm going to go with Baltimore. He's just going to get them ready for this game. I believe Oakland has the worst pass defense in the league, so I'm going to go ahead and go with the home team, and Baltimore is going to get home field advantage here, and they're going to squeak by.
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be access to watching it. Right now, the Baltimore receivers, they have a deep Steve Smith, you got
Mike Wallace.
They're solid, man. And then in Oakland, you obviously have Derek Carr, the three-headed monster, the rook's name, Richard, or Richard, however the hell you say it. And then at receiver, you got Michael Crabtree. This one's going to have a lot of fireworks. I fully expect both teams to put up with Kansas City at Pittsburgh for the Sunday night contest. I'm going with Pittsburgh in this one. They just got smoked in their worst loss in quite some time against the Eagles.
The best thing that happened to Philadelphia this offseason. Teddy Bridgewater doesn't get hurt. They still would probably be fair off with Sam Bradford, but Wentz and the Eagles are for real. That defense is something special.
Yeah. The Eagles have actually margin between points scored and points given up right now in the NFL, so they're doing well. But Kansas City at Pittsburgh is the game. I'm taking the Steelers in this one. Big week from Big Ben and company.
Yeah, I was hoping that opens the passing game for Antonio Brown. Another man that I have on my fantasy team, and I need everything I can get.
And then we have our last game of the week, which is the Monday night game. And this all-round offense has been balling. Giants defense also been pretty solid so far. I think this one is going to be a good Monday night matchup. It's going to be interesting. I think this one could be a very, very close. I'm actually going to take the 2-1 Giants over the 3-0 Vikings. So I just think the Giants are going to overwhelm that defense a little bit. At some point, you got to week for the Vikings.
I'll go ahead and disagree with you there. I think this game is going to be similar to the Saints and Giants. Not much offense, all about the defense. I think you shut Odell Beckham down, you don't really have much left in New York. Has been holding this league, and defense wins championships. So I'm going to take the Vikings at home to go to 4.
Yeah, but it's okay. I'll go ahead and take my lead. Now, this week, some of the other good matchups, which I feel like there's some pretty good ones this week. We have, let's see here. Tennessee, Houston, I think that could be an interesting game. Seattle at the Jets.
Buffalo at New England.
Yeah, wins right now, so that could be a real good one. Los Angeles and Arizona, I think, could be another solid match. That should be a lot of points there. So if you're into the offense, should be a good one. But the other interesting about Week 4 is fantasy season is in full swing, and you're starting to see things kind of take shape. These past couple of weeks, we've done sit or start. Actually going to do buy or sell. It's getting to that point in the season where you're getting itchy if you're like me and sitting on, 1 and 2, things like that. You're ready for some wins, man. So we're going to go ahead and kick this off with some buy or sell for fantasy football. So let's get right to it. So one of the guys I'm extremely high on right now is over in good old San Diego, and that's Travis Benjamin. If you can make a splash and try to get this guy, I would buy the hell out of him right now. Keenan Allen's out for the year on the IR. He's their go-to guy. Phillip Rivers is going to be throwing the mess out of the ball as per usual. Travis Benjamin's the go-to guy over there. I would buy the mess out of him, and if you can, while he's a good guy to have, if you get a good offer and a 2-for-1 swing or anything like that, by all means, for the right price, make a trade. If you have him on your team and you need to get better somewhere, use him as bait, because he's not going to slow down anytime this year. He's going to get a majority of the passes there. Another guy that I'm really high on right now, and I never thought I'd be saying this after his shit show of a rookie season, Melvin Gordon, another San Diego player. He's doing real well right now with the injury to Danny Woodhead. He's the feature back there, and he's going to get all the touches. And if there's one thing I can say about fantasy, go with the guy who's getting the volume, and Melvin Gordon's that guy. He's getting at least between the receiving and the rushing, he's going to get at least 22 touches a game, bare minimum.
Man, I got him on my fantasy team. The second I heard Danny Woodhead went down for the season, he was sitting on my bench, and he is forever going to be a starter on my team. And I hate to say it, but he plays the Saints this week, so he will definitely be in my starting fantasy. And he will torch the Saints this weekend if he does anything like Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman just did to us on Monday Night Football.
Fuck that. I wouldn't hate to say that. I'd love to say that. If I had anybody against the Saints, I'm fucking starting them. They're terrible. Defense is poo-poo. Another guy that I'm trying in all my power to get in a lot of my leagues, LeGarrette Blount. As I said, leading the league in rushing. With Dion Lewis out, there's really no timeshare there. Some people thought James White may steal some of those carries. Doesn't look that way. It looks like it's the LeGarrette Blount show right now. At least until Brady comes back, then there could be a huge question mark there. But if he keeps playing the way he's playing, he's still going to get the touches. And ultimately, once Brady comes back, as we were talking about earlier, there's a team that could go up in games early, so they're going to rely heavily on that run game. Another guy that has just blown up this year, over in Detroit, Marvin Jones from the Cincinnati Bengals. Golden Tate was the number one receiver heading into 2016. Any questions about who the number one receiver is there is now dead because Marvin Jones is crushing it. He's at 400 yards on the season, coming off of a big 200-yard game, and he's just been balling out since day one. So another guy that I'd buy right now if you get the opportunity, Marvin Jones. He's definitely a huge buy right now.
I couldn't agree more. I'm not necessarily in the market for a wide receiver right now, but if I was, that is somebody that I would be targeting. Like you said, you want somebody that's going to get targets, and Marvin Jones is getting targets right now.
And then over in Carolina, another receiver. This goes without saying, Kelvin Benjamin. I've heard a couple of people say, what happened last week, yada, yada, yada. They played the Vikings defense. He was having Xavier Rhodes ride him the whole frickin' way, damn near. That's a good defense. They know how to eliminate receivers. I think that's an absolute aberration of a game. Kelvin Benjamin's still going to be a top 10 receiver when it's all said and done. So if you can get him, especially after last week, if you could bait someone into giving you some dog shit trade to get Kelvin Benjamin, by all means, take it. One of the things in fantasy, take advantage of the weak. Take advantage of them. If you can kill them with a trade, by all means, do it. No prisoners in fantasy. So the 5 guys that I put on the buy or sell list. So the 5 I'm buying is Travis Benjamin, Melvin Gordon, LeGarrette Blount, Marvin Jones, Kelvin Benjamin. On over to the sell. One of the guys that I absolutely sell is Jeremy Hill. He's coming off of a big week where he had 97 yards. However, he had a 50-yard run. And anything and everything after that, he averaged 2.42. Yeah,
it was bad.
Jeremy Hill is just not a great NFL running back. He's very mediocre at best. He's heavily reliant on touchdowns. I would dump him immediately. Try to package him with somebody, get something better for him, because his ceiling just isn't that high. Sure, he'll get you, 20 points occasionally, but he's putting up duds every other week, so I'm just not big on Hill.
He's sharing carries with Giovanni Bernard as well. So, like we said earlier, go for touches. He is sharing a workload, and he is very dependent on scoring a touchdown to get you fantasy points. He is the first player since the beginning of 2015 season to have 2 rushing touchdowns against the Denver Broncos. So, just throwing a random stat that I happen to read.
Another guy, which he is having a very similar start as he had last year, Larry Fitzgerald. I love Larry Fitzgerald. One of my favorite receivers in the league by far. He's reliable. But as far as fantasy is concerned, sell. He had a huge week. Week 1 had a solid output. Week 2, and last week you saw his first mediocre output. And that's going to be the trend with Fitz. That's something that happened last year. Early on, he was catching touchdowns left and right. Once that offense started getting going, you saw guys like John Brown and Michael Floyd start getting their hands in the cookie jar a little bit. But like I said, Fitz, first game, he went 8 catches, 81 for 2 touchdowns. And then against Tampa, he had 5 for 77 and a touchdown. And then last week, he put up 7 for 60. So, if you got him in a PPR format, you should be okay. But if you're playing standard scoring, try to sell him while you can and try to get something bigger for him.
I'm going to give you his next 7 games that he has lined up. He's at home against the Rams, at San Francisco, home against the Jets, home against Seattle, at Carolina. He's off for a week. And then he's got San Francisco at home and at Miami. All those defenses are solid this season, and he's going to have a nice rough stretch ahead of him. Definitely another player that's going to be dependent on the touchdown in the next few weeks.
Yeah, and as I said, if you got him in a PPR format, he's going to give you 6 or 7 catches a game. So you're safe there, but if you're talking standard scoring where touchdowns are important, by all means, try to see what you can get for him and sell while you can. Another guy that I was a big fan of heading into the season, not so much anymore. I'm scared shitless of him because I see his production just continues to take a dive after dive, and that's Latavius Murray over there in Oakland with Richard and going brain dead on the third running back again. They got a 3-headed monster over there in Oakland right now, and they're just eating into Lat Murray's carries. He the last 2 games he's had, I believe, 10 and 11, something crazy. something small. And fortunately, he did get touchdowns in all 3 games so far this year. But you can't be relying on the touchdowns when you're getting limited touches. So if I'm you, I'm selling Lat Murray and trying to get him off my back before it gets rough for him. And another running back that I'm not 100% sold on. He had a huge 30-point game, and that's Matt Forte.
Played against him. Thanks.
Matt Forte, he's getting up there in age. I mean, he's climbing. As the season wears on, those wheels are going to start getting some tread on those tires, and it's only a matter of time before he slows down. So he's had a really good start to the year so far, but sell while you can.
I think I read a stat that he was on pace for like 475 touches on the season. I mean, now granted, that was only through week 3, but this man's 31, 32 years old, and I mean, he's getting 30. He got 30 touches in a game against Buffalo. There's no way those wheels are going to stay that high through the rest of the season.
No. Forte's been in the league 9 years, and he was the do-it-all back for so long in Chicago, and they're expecting him to do the same thing in New York. I'm just scared of injury. I'm scared of slowing down just because age is eventually going to catch up to him. So Forte's another player I'd sell extremely high right now. And if you need to convince your friend, just tell them, hey, he's going to get all the touches, and you'll get someone to bite. The last guy that I'm trying so hard to sell, but it is difficult. So if you're with me, I share your pain, fam. Sammy Watkins over there in Buffalo. He's going to get a lot of volume since they fired offensive coordinator over there in Buffalo. But, God, I can't trust him. Dude can't stay healthy, and then when he is, he'll put up freaking duds. Now he has the explosive ability to go for, 14 catches, 160 yards, and a touchdown. But is it worth the 3-game stretch where I'll have 9 catches total for, 120 yards over 3 games? It's not. So if you can package Sammy Watkins as well, he's another one I would sell right now. So, as far as the sells go, Jeremy Hill, Larry Fitz, Lat Murray, Matt Forte, Sammy Watkins. Now, Ryan, is there anybody that you can think of off the top that you would be selling right now?
I'm trying to dish Eddie Lacy in one of my leagues. It's like watching the Saints with the Packers. They're going to go pass happy first. They'll get on the 2-yard line. And, I mean, obviously I would give the ball to Aaron Rodgers. That's who you trust in that system. Murray is yet to find the end zone this year. And when you got Aaron Rodgers throwing for 4 touchdowns and you got a 28-14 lead, there ain't going to be much happening in the Packers offense.
Yeah, Lacy is certainly not living up to the lofty expectations, especially ones that I had for him this year. He didn't come into training camp nearly as fat, but he still looks slow as shit. So, Eddie Lacy's another one. If you can sell him, by all means, go for it. But it's a very tough sell right now. You're looking at selling a very, very low-end player for him. So as far as fantasy goes, Ryan, I know you're wanting to talk a little bit about this past week. So 0-5, huh?
And I was busy all week. I know excuses are like buttholes. They all stink, and everybody has one. But I was a very busy man last week, and it showed in my fantasy performance. I did go 0-5. The league that means most to me, I am currently 0-3 and not having any luck. So I need to change my fortunes before I make a fool of myself, if I haven't already.
You most certainly already have. I have been doing the same pretty much. It's not been a good fantasy season. Between the injuries, the just stupid boneheaded decisions on my part, it is sucking like no end. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and wrap up the fantasy segment. Coming up in just a few seconds here, we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about our athlete of the week. So this week for the athlete of the week, if you haven't heard, Jose Fernandez, the former Miami Marlins pitcher, he was their ace, young guy, 24 years old. He died in a boating accident. No drugs or alcohol involved, just something crazy, and just very sad and unfortunate. But he passed away, and the Miami Marlins did a wonderful job of honoring him. They all wore number 16 with Fernandez on the back.
They're retiring 16.
Yeah, and, they retired the number and everything, and, sort of took the league by storm. Very sad. He was a kid who was full of life. He was one of those guys who just seemed to always have a smile on his face, just really enjoyed the game. There's highlights for days, and like I said, this kid had a very, very bright future in baseball. And unfortunately, it just was cut short because of a freak and stupid accident. But he's going to get a co-athlete of the week along with one of his teammates who honored him in quite possibly one of the most emotional and best ways possible. Just thinking about it, talking about it, it really pulls at the strings of your heart and gives you all the good feels. But D. Gordon, who is the second baseman for the Miami Marlins, they honored him with the start of the game by taking the first pitch as tribute to him, so to speak. And then in D. Gordon's at bat, a guy who's not a power hitter, like we talked about earlier, with slipping my mind, second baseman. Odor from Texas. D. Gordon is definitely not a power hitting second baseman. In fact, the guy hasn't hit a home run in 2016. Well, I believe it was a 2-0 pitch that came in, and D. Gordon blasted it to the wall. But the best part about it is when he was rounding the bases, you could tell it hit him right in the heart, and he was crying as he was rounding the bases. He gets home, and just the second he met with one of his teammates, they dap off, and just so much emotion in that moment. He's breaking down, and you see him get into the dugout, and there was a handful of Marlins players who you could tell were all crying, were all emotional from that moment. It's just sort of a send-off to Jose Fernandez, which, as sad as it is, you can't write the script any better for a send-off for a baseball player. Even the catcher for the opposing team, they were playing the Orioles. I can't remember the exact quote, but he, said how he saw how emotional Gordon was rounding the bases, and when he started coming home, he said he teared up as well. It's just one of those things you just can't control because of how powerful and how impactful that moment was. So, without a doubt, that moment, that team, Jose Fernandez and the Miami Marlins, D. Gordon and their second baseman, those two guys kind of go hand in hand for the co-athlete of the week. It's something that absolutely had to be talked about, and just one of those feel-good moments in spite of such a terrible tragedy in sports.
I'll add to that saying two things. It's definitely a moment that is ESPY worthy. That will win greatest sports moment of the year. The Cavaliers will give them a run for their money, but you can't write that. Like you said, D. Gordon didn't have a home run all year and leads off a game or in the bottom of the first at home in front of the home crowd. You definitely know that Jose Fernandez was still with that team that night when he hit that home run. And B, there will be a Jose Fernandez award. That's how the MLB is going to continue his legacy. The man meant so much to the Miami Marlins. He was Cuban. He came over as a 14-year-old. I heard a story about him today. When he got on the boat to come to the United States for a better life, they were on the boat, and he saw someone go overboard. And he's 13 years old, first thing he thinks of is, I'm going to jump in the water and go save this person. This is what I was meant to do. And come to find out, it was actually his mother that had fallen overboard, and he saved his mother's life. He meant so much to the Cubans in Miami. I mean, there's such a huge demographic of Cubans in Miami. He meant so much to that town, and he'll definitely be missed. He had a bright future. One of the most dominant pitchers I've ever seen. Just what he could do with a baseball. He had the highest strikeout per 9 innings rate anyone has seen. He had a great moment with Barry Bonds the other day in the dugout, and that organization is definitely going to feel the effects of that. He was due for a free agent contract next season. I know there was a couple teams in the market for him, but I don't think Miami would have ever let him go. He just meant too much to that town, and it's sad to see him go.
He one of the best moments that I can think of for Jose Fernandez was he was pitching in one of the games, and he had a piss liner hit right back at him, and it's just one of those moments you just laugh at.
I just saw it the other day.
He gets a piss line.
Whiskey hit
yeah.
And he literally goes, "Did you catch that?" And Fernando's like, "Yep." Like, he hit a piss rocket right back at him. And Jose Fernandez looked like a shortstop fielding a ground ball, just snagged it, and they both looked at each other, and Tulowitzki was like, "Did you catch that?" And Jose was like, "Yep," and walked to the dugout.
Yeah, it's just and that's kind of one of the things I think I love most about Jose Fernandez is kind of what we were talking about earlier with Bryce Harper. He just brings life to the game. He brought this just, it's ultimately a game. It was just like he treated it just like he did probably when he was a young kid playing. It was just him playing with his friends in a rec league, essentially. He just had so much joy for it. Very rarely did you see a guy like him, and he didn't have a smile on his face while playing. But yeah, that Tulowitzki moment's by far one of the best things I've ever seen in baseball. I
heard another story too. Last season he was an all-star, and you get a bonus check for being an all-star. It's like $50,000. It's a lot of money for making an all-star game that he might not even pitch in. And he gave it, he gave it to a little girl that needed like a procedure done or something. But I mean, $50,000, and he just gives it away to a child that is in need. And like you said, he's just class act, and he's definitely going to be missed.
Yeah, so Jose Fernandez, Athlete of the Week this week. Without question, there was only one option for that. That was a very easy decision to be made there. But rest in peace to Jose Fernandez. And if you haven't checked out some of his highlights, just go look it up on YouTube. The guy was incredible. And for as good as he was on the field, like Ryan said, even better person off the field. So rest in peace to him. Typically, I'd end the show here being a smartass, but I'm not going to do that in honor of Jose Fernandez. Hope you all enjoyed this episode, and hopefully you'll tune in next week. See ya.
All right, well, that's a wrap, Mike. Let me go ahead and turn this thing off real quick.
Hold up, dude. What the hell are those squiggly lines?
Like a heartbeat at a doctor's office?
No, dude. What the hell? You been recording this? You told me this was off the record.
Yeah. Drink it in, man.